Number 15. Family Guy predicts Bruce Jenner gender change. In the past few months, social media has been blowing up with talk about Bruce Jenner coming out as transgender and even taking steps in direction of a full sex change. Everybody has varying opinions on this. An interesting part about this, though, is that Family Guy actually predicted Bruce Jenner would be coming out as Caitlyn, or at least in a sense. The 2009 episode titled "We Love You, Conrad" features a throwaway joke made by Stewie about Jenner being a beautiful, elegant Dutch woman. Another clip features Jenner performing a burlesque routine for sailors. Since Jenner's coming out, Seth MacFarlane has been questioned by media about the jokes. According to an interview, he stated, "You just gotta play it safe, because the climate is just too charged. Anything I say can and will be used against me." Considering that there was speculation of Jenner's true gender identity for years before coming out, it is suggestible that the joke was nothing more than a joke. However, when you add this to the list of the other predictions, it becomes almost too accurate. Number 14. Person of interest predicts NSA whistleblower. Edward Joseph Snowden is a computer professional who worked for the CIA and leaked classified information from the U.S. National Security Agency in June 2013. Snowden released information and secret documents about the NSA spying on Americans and obtaining personal information through phone calls. In a 2012 episode of the American drama Person of Interest, there was a character created that seemed to predict the events associated with Snowden. Henry L. Peck, an Equities financial analyst, is a character in the episode No Good Deed, who seems to mimic Snowden in both appearance and lifestyle. The two main characters, Reese and Finch, quickly learn that the office where he works at is only a front for the National Security Agency, and that his real job is an intelligence analyst. Peck ultimately releases NSA information and numbers, which causes a team to chase after him and threaten to take his life. This plot is scarily similar to the real-life things that went on involving Edward Snowden. Strange to think that a TV show can not only replicate events before they happen, but also create a character very similar to the real person involved, before that person even had any spotlight. It's almost as if they had some inside information to the NSA, or perhaps inside information to the future. Number 13. Spooks predicted the 7/7 London bombing. On July 7, 2005, a series of coordinated suicide bomb attacks in central London took place, which targeted civilians using the public transport system during the morning rush hour. This event is also referred to as 7/7 because of the date. An estimated 52 civilians were killed and over 700 more were injured. Only a month before, the BBC hit drama Spooks filmed an entire episode about London trains being bombed by terrorists. The episode was so similar that only a very heavily edited version could be shown afterwards. The writer's foresight was not a surprise, considering that they had been immersed in the news since the first script conference. When asked about their chilling accuracy to real-world events, they explained that they just simply observed what was happening in the daily news. One can't help but wonder if there's more to that than close observation. Even one of the main stars said his time on set was chilling because of the show's ability to predict real-world happenings. Number 12. Simpsons predict FIFA corruption. FIFA is the international governing body of football or soccer in America. FIFA was founded in 1904 to oversee international competition. An episode of The Simpsons titled "You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee" was aired in March 2014 and is said to have predicted a corruption scandal amongst FIFA. An official from the World Football Governing Body, not referred to as FIFA, comes to interview Homer as he is in search of an honest man to referee the games. In the middle of explaining a widespread corruption, he is cuffed and taken away by police. Roughly a year later, in May 2015, 14 FIFA officials and marketing executives were indicted by the United States. The officials were arrested in Switzerland under the charges of wire fraud, racketeering, and money laundering. The episode also predicted the World Cup winners for that year, which was Germany. Number 11. Family Guy predicts Boston bombings. The Boston Marathon bombing occurred on April 15, 2013. The incident was followed by shootings and 3 were killed, while about 264 others were seriously injured. A Family Guy episode titled Turban Cowboy aired 29 days before the Boston Marathon bombings on March 17, 2013, and is said to have predicted the bombings. It's unsure who brought this to attention first, but it led to a complete uproar on the internet about Seth MacFarlane having Illuminati ties, as well as many faked versions of the marathon scene from the episode. The original scene occurs as a flashback to Peter running over dozens of marathon runners, resulting in blood and gore. The scene then cuts to Peter being interviewed about winning the race, where he mentions that he just killed anyone in his way. This would seem nothing more than a joke made in poor taste, or perhaps a complete coincidence, until you consider the fact that the majority of this episode is centered around Peter accidentally becoming involved in terrorism. The fact gives what could be a simple coincidence an eerie feel. Number 10. Saturday Night Live predicts bankers by accident. Another spookily accurate prediction was made during a sketch on SNL which mocked supposedly fictional characters who were responsible for the year's financial meltdown in late 2008. Two actors portrayed bankers Herbert and Marion Sandler, who managed to get millions out of the Wachovia Bank and made direct profit. The showrunner Lorne Michaels claims he did not know that Herbert and Marion Sandler were a real couple, nor that they were also thought by many to have a hand in the Wachovia fall. The couple, who had actually been pretty unheard of before the skit, never filed legal lawsuit, and were assumedly content with NBC's decision to remove the sketch from reruns. This could be labeled as more of a lying writer than a prediction. Either way, it just adds up to the list of how TV has more power and influence than we often believe. Number 9. Star Trek predicts Apollo 11. In a 1967 episode, Tomorrow is Yesterday, the Enterprise is thrown back in time to the 60s on Earth. The episode featured a throwaway line that a manned mission to the moon was scheduled for a Wednesday, helping the crew determine that they traveled to 1969. 2 years after the episode, Apollo 11, the spaceflight that landed the first humans on the moon, launched on Wednesday, July 20th in 1969. While many assume that this was just a guess of luck, there are theorists out there that say there's more to it. The writers of Star Trek actually had some time-traveling ability and left little clues in their episodes. Although time-traveling scriptwriters does sound far-fetched, it does lead one to wonder. Number 8. Troubleshooters predict BP. The popular BBC drama titled The Troubleshooters may hold the record for both the number and the quality of bizarrely accurate predictions made over its 7-year run. Through fictional British oil company Mobil, the show managed to predict and anticipate many of the decisions and setbacks made by the actual British oil company known as British Petroleum. Mobil would take over a small chemistry company, and BP would do the same only a few days later. Mobil would predict gas prices that ended up being within a tenth of a cent that BP would later set, and in one instance, BP struck oil in Alaska a few days before Mobil did the same on TV. However, the episode would have actually been filmed several months before it was aired. The Troubleshooters didn't just confine their predictions to British Petroleum either. The show confidently assumed that a subterranean tunnel under the English Channel would eventually be constructed. Unfortunately, storage concerns led BBC to destroy and erase most of their archived footage of the Troubleshooters, meaning that the world has no way to examine old episodes for clues about other major events. Number 7. Simpsons predict Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. In 2003, the circus actors Siegfried and Roy were performing an act with a 7-year-old white tiger named Manticore when Roy was viciously and unexpectedly attacked. Fortunately, Roy survived, made a full recovery, and eventually returned to stage for a final show with Manticore. 10 years before this attack, on December 16, 1993, The Simpsons predicted the event in an episode titled Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Loved Legalized Gambling. During this episode, Homer and Ned Flanders travel to Las Vegas where they meet Gunter and Ernst, who are a parody of Siegfried and Roy. Near the end of the episode, one of the white tigers attacks the performers. It is speculated that their tiger makes its first leap on the character designed after Roy. Later, in commentary for the Season 5 DVD, the production team dismissed this incident as evidence for any sort of prediction, saying it was only bound to happen sooner or later, as it often does with circus-trained animals. However, many speculate that the commentary was just a cover-up to protect the Simpsons' ability. Number 6. Scrubs predict Osama bin Laden whereabouts. No one would suspect the American medical comedy Scrubs to have any insight into the future, especially not any insight into the hiding spot of one of the world's most infamous terrorists, Osama bin Laden. The janitor in Scrubs is a character well known for his mysterious and strange character. However, it's doubtful even the writers knew the accuracy of him saying, "In my opinion, we should be looking for Bin Laden in Pakistan." The joke in the 2006 episode seemed to be nothing more than a geographical blunder until 5 years later on May 2nd, 2011, when Bin Laden was actually found in Pakistan. Shortly after the news of Bin Laden's capture was confirmed by US President Barack Obama, Scrubs fans began digging out a clip of Neil Flynn's character saying the strange comment. The writers have been questioned in interviews about the prediction, but they claim that they honestly just got lucky. Number 5. Star Trek predicts Martin Luther King assassination. In the 1968 episode Assignment Earth, Spock reels off a list of disastrous political events that would be occurring on a single day as a way of emphasizing how crazy and dangerous the 60s were. First on the list was something referred to as an important assassination. Less than a week after the episode aired, on April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. went out onto the balcony of his hotel room and was struck at 6:01 p.m. by a single bullet which entered through his right cheek, breaking his jaw and several vertebrae as it traveled down his spinal cord, severing his jugular vein and major arteries in the process, before lodging in his shoulder. King was then rushed to St. Joseph Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 7:05 p.m. This was probably the important assassination mentioned in the Star Trek episode. Number 4. A 1987 sitcom predicts the death of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. The sitcom Second Chance had a short run only from 1987 to 1988, which was apparently enough time to correctly predict the year this leader would die. The show focused on the story of Chaz Russell, a man who dies in 2011 but isn't quite fit for either heaven or hell. He goes back in time to help his past self live a better life. In the pilot episode, before he reached the pearly gates, Colonel Gaddafi showed up for judgment following his death. When you do the math, that means that in the show, Colonel Gaddafi died in 2011, which just so happens to be the year he actually died. In the pilot, Gaddafi is shown to have a few bullet holes in his torso, which we can assume was his cause of death. This is really unsettling when you consider that in real life, he was captured in his hometown, tortured, and later killed by gunshots to his back and leg. It doesn't take much magic to assume that a Libyan leader would be killed by gunfire. It's just a little creepy that the year and general location of the wounds were so accurate. Number 3. Laugh-In predicts Reagan presidency. A 1967 to 1973 comedy titled Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In was known for its news segments that parodied TV journalism. The 1968 episode News of the Future featured Dan Rowan reading a bulletin from 20 years in the future about President Ronald Reagan becoming president in the 80s. At the time, Reagan was governor of California. The same show also later predicted the fall of the Berlin Wall and added that it would be replaced with a moat. Number 2. Family Guy predicts Robin Williams' suicide. Among the list of things Family Guy has allegedly predicted, perhaps the most heartbreaking is how comedian and actor Robin Williams' death was supposedly predicted in a 2012 episode. The episode was actually a short of a larger episode titled Viewer Mail Number 2. In this episode, Peter obtains the power to turn anything he touches into Robin Williams. Peter is eventually driven into madness and attempts suicide, but fails. Although the suicide in this attempt is not done by Williams, it's still frightening to think how the two coincided. Furthermore, there are things in this episode that hint at suicide, such as cut hands, which is a gory simulation to slit wrists. To add on to the already creepy coincidences, reports have shown that the same episode was being played on BBC Three just moments before news of the actor's death was made public. Number 1. The Fox Network predicts 9/11. 9/11 was predicted in 2 Fox shows, the first being The Simpsons, where in the episode The City of New York vs. Homer Simpson, Lisa holds up a flyer that reads New York with a large 9 and the Twin Towers representing 11 just to the right of it. The second being the X-Files spin-off, featuring a trio of computer hacking conspiracy geeks popularly known as the Lone Gunmen. The series has gained much notoriety since the episode that seemed to predict the events of 9/11 on March 4th, 2001. The pilot episode features a hacker that takes control of a commercial airline and plans to crash it into the World Trade Center. The climax of the episode actually shows the plane heading into one of the Twin Towers, but at the last minute, it's pulled upward and just misses the building. It's then revealed that the hijacker and hacker is not just a random psycho, but actually works for an underground government agency. The plan was to make the attack seem like it was led by foreign dictators in order to raise the defense budget. Most of the buzz surrounding this started on the exact day that the 9/11 terrorist attacks took place. Many people woke up to see the buildings crashing down on the news and immediately thought back to the March episode. Some viewers even made it a point to report the series. At WonderCon 2008 in San Diego, the producer and writing team were questioned about the strangely accurate prediction. This may well be coincidence, as Spotnitz the producer asserts, but it's worth questioning whether the writers of that episode were also correct about the attacks being carried out by a rogue element within the government itself. Although they were quick to dismiss this as a conspiracy theory, it's plausible to consider that while we assume that the writers of The Lone Gunman had some sort of inside connections to these attacks, couldn't we also say that perhaps someone got ideas from the episode? Got an idea for a top 15 list? Be sure to leave it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.